Welcome to another episode of Beautiful, Bad and Bizarre. Today we're here at Hove Cemetery in Brighton to bring flowers and visit the grave of one of my most favourite actors, Terence Morgan. Terence Ivor Grant Morgan was born on the 8th of December 1921 to parents Frederick Roland Morgan, who was a bone surgeon, and Muriel Ursula Morgan, whose maiden name had been Grant. Terence was born in Lewisham, London, and would eventually attend Ewell Castle School in Epsom, which was also a few years later to be the school of actor Olivier Reed. Terence Morgan's uncle was the character actor Vern Morgan, and among other roles, Vern appeared in 4 early episodes of Dad's Army as a landlord and a farmer, and he also appeared in other comedy shows such as The Best of Benny Hill and George and Mildred. After leaving school, Terence worked as a clerk for Lloyd's of London, but his heart was in the theatre, and at the age of 18 he would soon win a scholarship to the prestigious Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, also known as RADA, and he shared a bursary with none other than Richard Attenborough. His RADA days were interrupted after a year when, in July 1941, Terence was called up to be a private in the army. After a year of training, he was given a choice to become an officer or join the Army Theatre Unit. Of course, he joined the theatre group, which included Dulcie Gray and Muriel Pavlo. During his time in the army, he would have to frequently travel in packed trains and on the London Underground. It was discovered that Terence had severe claustrophobia and, additionally, vertigo, to the point that he was invalided out of the army and discharged on the 17th of July 1943. Terence's career as an actor started with radio work and some weeks at the Oxford Playhouse, where he appeared in Maxwell Anderson's play Winterset alongside the wonderful actress Yvonne Mitchell. It was while he was making his West End debut at the Aldwych Theatre, London, in Robert Sherwood's play There Shall Be No Night, that he was spotted by Laurence Olivier, who was attending that evening with his wife Vivien. Olivier was so impressed with Terence Morgan that he would cast him in his own production of Thornton Wilder's The Skin of Our Teeth in 1945, playing opposite Vivien Leigh. This play would be life-changing for Terence, not just professionally, but personally too. In May 1946, a beautiful young actress called Georgina Jummel, who was the daughter of dancer Victor Simonson, and Betty Jummel, who was one of the best burlesque acts of her time, found herself at the Piccadilly Theatre in London. She was auditioning for the part of Gladys, a 12-year-old girl in the play The Skin of Our Teeth. Georgina was 19 at the time. Georgina won the role of understudy for the part of Gladys, and she also had a bit part in the play. On the first morning of rehearsals, Georgina said she noticed a smashing-looking, dark-haired young man in a navy pinstripe suit, playing the part of a young teenager, Henry, brother to Gladys. Georgina declared in her autobiography, Laughter in the Air, "It was love at first sight. Little did I know that I would spend the next 58 years with him. How could I have known there would be so much excitement ahead of us?" During rehearsals, the couple began to develop what was to become a close and loving relationship, and after the play's very successful opening night, Terence invited Georgina back to his one-bedroom flat in Irving Street, a short road between Leicester Square and Charing Cross Road. Georgina recalled they dined on his ration of bacon and eggs to soft music under soft lights, and Terence never forgot that Georgina left him with the washing up. Shortly after this, Georgina experienced an attempted assault at the door of her room in the accommodation where she was staying. Only just managing to get in the room and shut the door, Georgina lay awake terrified most of the night. When Terence learned of this, he suggested she should stay at his flat, which was an offer Georgina gladly accepted. The couple became engaged on Armistice Day, the 11th of November 1946. That year, Terence had also decided to purchase a leasehold flat on the first floor of an old building in Irving Street. In late 1946, the selling agents wanted a reference before the vendor would agree to a sale, and so Terence asked Olivier if he would mind giving him a reference. Olivier replied, "Write it yourself, dear boy, and I'll sign it." Just 3 weeks after buying the flat, Georgina discovered she was pregnant, and so in 1947 the couple married at Caxton Hall Registry Office in London, with a reception at the Mayfair Hotel. Rationing was still in place and the couple didn't have enough coupons for a long white wedding dress. However, years later they retook their vows in a church with all the trimmings. Terence had heard a rumour that Olivier was going to direct and star in a film of Hamlet, and so he asked his agent to inquire if there would be a role he could play. The answer came back with an offer for Terence to play Hamlet during film rehearsals, while Olivier acted as director. Terence jumped at the opportunity. Filming took place at Denham Studios, and after a couple of months of playing Hamlet for Olivier's camera, much to Terence's delight, he was offered the part of Laertes, playing alongside Peter Cushing as Osric, while 16-year-old Jean Simmons played the part of Ophelia. During filming, Olivier as Hamlet was to duel with Terence Morgan's Laertes. Olivier encouraged Terence to attack him with gusto, saying, "Just try and punch it into me. Don't worry, I'll parry it." Following instructions from his mentor, Terence plunged forward, piercing Olivier's shirt and causing blood to spurt. Unperturbed, Olivier applied a dressing to the wound, and it was action stations again.
Have it you now!
As filming came to an end, Georgina gave birth to their daughter in October 1947. Greatly influenced by the Oliviers, Terence and Georgina named their baby Leigh. They did not have the courage to ask the Oliviers to be godparents to Leigh, but with hindsight, Georgina felt that if they had have been asked, they would have accepted. Terence was very close to Richard Attenborough, and so they asked Richard and his wife, the actress Sheila Sim, who both happily accepted, and according to Georgina, they were wonderful godparents. Shortly after the birth of baby Livia, Terence Morgan was faced with what Georgina described as an agonizing decision. At the age of just 26, Terence received two major offers. The first was a starring role in the film The Blue Lagoon opposite Jean Simmons and directed by Frank Launder. The other offer was to work once again with the newly knighted Sir Laurence Olivier, who wanted Terence to accompany him and Vivien Leigh on an 8-month tour with the Old Vic. Most of the tour would be spent touring Australia and New Zealand and appearing in leading roles in 3 prestigious plays that would be starred in and directed by Olivier himself. It was only possible to accept one of the opportunities being presented, which amounted to either instant fame with the promise of Hollywood offers to follow, or a highly respected professional experience that would take his stage career to another level. The Oliviers wined and dined Terence, working hard to persuade him to accept their proposal. Terence gave both offers his intense consideration and eventually came to a decision, phoning Olivier and telling him he had decided to accept the film offer. Olivier responded with, Oh, dross, promptly ending any chance of further conversation by hanging up the phone. Terence immediately grabbed the dictionary to look up the definition of dross, to discover that it was scum thrown off from molten metals in melting, refuse, rubbish. Impulsively, Terence rang Olivier back and agreed to refuse the film and accept Olivier's offer. This, in retrospect, would be deemed as the wrong choice by Terence and Georgina in the following years, but Terence had felt a strong obligation to both Olivier and Vivien Leigh. The plays that were going to be performed were Shakespeare's Richard III, Sheridan's School for Scandal, and Thornton Wilder's Skin of Our Teeth. It was suggested that Georgina take the role of Gladys in the play Skin of Our Teeth, which she had understudied for during the London production when she met Terence, as well as the part of Lady Anne in Richard III. Georgina accepted but had to make arrangements for the care of their 3-month-old baby, Livia. Georgina recalled that while she knew her daughter was in good hands with a foster mother, it was a decision that both she and Terence would later come to regret, missing Livia's babyhood. Terence let out their London flat, and with arrangements for Livia in place, the couple set off for Australia on a cold February day in 1948, getting a train to Liverpool, where they would then embark onto the cargo and passenger ship, the Corinthic, which would set sail to Fremantle, Australia. On returning from the tour, Terence was offered a small part in Captain Horatio Hornblower, released in 1951, starring Gregory Peck. It was during filming that Terence met and became good friends with the actor Stanley Baker, who was cast as a member of the crew in the film. Terence would be best man at Stanley's wedding in 1950 to the actress Ellen Martin, who had been introduced to Stanley by Richard Burton. By now, with a young toddler to care for, Terence and Georgina felt London was not the right place to raise their daughter. Terence's agent, Al Parker, who had a home in Brighton, suggested that would be a good place for a young family to live. So Terence listened to the advice and purchased number 13 Wyndham Street in Brighton, a freehold terraced cottage for £1,000, while also keeping the flat in London for a short time. However, Terence soon discovered that the property had protected tenants, a family of 6. To overcome the situation, he bought the tenants another house in Brighton that was closer to the husband's place of work, on a 100% mortgage, which the income for the rent just about paid for. Number 13 Wyndham Street was in a terrible state of disrepair and required complete renovation. Terence became involved in the whole process, and the seeds of becoming a future property developer were sown. Once the renovations were complete, the family sold the flat in London and moved to Brighton. Unknown to them at the time, Terence would be out of work for almost 9 months, during which time, with no income, their savings were quickly running out. Just as things were becoming dire, Terence was offered a part in a new London play called The Martin's Nest with his old friend Yvonne Mitchell. Unfortunately, the play was a flop. But, as luck would have it, the actress Glynis Johns was attending the first night opening along with her partner, the producer and director Anthony Darnborough. Darnborough was about to produce a film of 3 short stories by Somerset Maugham to be adapted and to be called Encore. Glynis was to star in Gigolo and Gigolette and suggested that Terence would be perfect for the part of Gigolo. Terence enthusiastically accepted their offer. However, it was being financed by the J. Arthur Rank organisation, and they insisted Terence should be contracted to them or they would not approve of the casting. Therefore, Terence became one of Rank's leading male stars alongside John Mills, Donald Sinden, Dirk Bogarde and John Gregson. It would be a whirlwind of 4 exciting years under contract to Rank. Rank sent the famous photographer Cornell Lucas, who by the way took some of the most stunning photographs of Diana Dors, to Brighton to photograph Terence for publicity purposes. The Brighton cottage was put on the market and the family moved back to London, sharing the home of Georgina's mother, Betty Jummel, who was still working. Following the success of Encore, Terence appears in the 1952 film Mandy with Phyllis Calvert playing his wife. The story is about their daughter Mandy, played by Mandy Miller, who was born profoundly deaf. Terence Morgan was required to attend the famous Rank studio garden parties when on one occasion, while stood next to Kay Kendall, I have a video on Kay and you can find the link in the description of this video. As they posed at the request of photographers, Dulcie Gray suddenly appeared on the horizon, marching forward to join the group and have her photo taken while wearing a huge hat with a feather on top. Kay Kendall exclaimed, "Oh look, here comes Gracie Dull. She's put a feather up her arse and come as a bird." In 1953, Terence appeared again opposite Yvonne Mitchell in Turn the Key Softly. A young Joan Collins was also in this film. Shortly after the success of Mandy, Terence had been sent the script for They Can't Hang Me, which was released in 1955. He absolutely hated it and turned it down, but unfortunately, choice of script was not in his contract, and as a result, his salary was instantly stopped. Therefore, Terence was given no option and was forced to go ahead with the film. During the 50s and 60s, Terence Morgan was rarely seen off of the British cinema screen, where he was playing a variety of leading roles, including playing several villains, the first of which was in a 1953 film called Street Corner with Peggy Cummins. Terence would also work with Peggy in Always a Bride, 1953, and The March Hare in 1956. Terence and Peggy would often promote their work together at various cinemas. The fan mail Terence received from women was said to be the biggest number received by any British male star at that time, averaging at 2,000 letters a week. And in August 1954, while appearing in Portsmouth and Southsea promoting his new film, Dance Little Lady, he signed in the region of 200 autographs. At the event, Terence offered a fan a cigarette, which she accepted, despite the fact that she did not smoke. When she was asked by someone that knew her why she'd accepted it, she replied, "He gave it to me with his own hands. I shall be able to keep it as a souvenir." George Minter, the producer of Dance Little Lady, was asked why he'd said yes to giving Terence Morgan the part of Little Billy in the film. He said, "Because Morgan is not just a good actor, he has the personality and the technical skill so well put together that he can make you believe in anything he does. That's why I took the chance and I don't regret it." At the end of his contract with Rank, Terence was asked to stay with them, but without a yearly salary increase. At the same time, George Minter offered him a 2-year contract at £6,000 a year, which was more than Rank had been paying him. So Terence accepted and soon appeared in one of my favourite films of all time, Tread Softly Stranger, which was released in 1958, starring alongside the fabulous George Baker. I've made a video about George Baker and we'll leave the link in the description of this video, and my beloved Diana Dors. Georgina Morgan, Terence's wife, said of Diana Dors, "She was great fun and a true professional. No fool, she knew a tasteless inference when she read it and had her own way of dealing with the situation." Terence Morgan is truly superb in Tread Softly Stranger, and it's a film I always recommend. Even if vintage British crime drama is not your cup of tea, this film is worth watching.
If you need a bit to go on with, I might be able to borrow it.
Where from?
Well, I could perhaps get it for you. I don't know offhand.
No thanks, Dave. I think you've got your own problems. Well, I think I'll go to bed. Good night.
Night, Johnny.
Let's have it.
You bury your head in your racing papers all day, and where does it get you except...
Listen, you're in a jam. Now tell it fast.
Take your hands off me!
Dave, for Pete's sake, what's wrong?
Like you said, Johnny, I'm in a jam. I'm in trouble up to the neck. I've been taking money from Malibis.
What?
They're coming to do the books Monday week.
How much?
£300.
Any of it left? No. It all went on Calico. Her in the moonlight. Big eyes and lazy, drawling voice. She's got you by the short hairs. One hand on your knee and the other in your pocket.
Don't come that big
You
brother
bloody
with me.
fool, didn't you know that you were going to be caught? You'll go to jail for this. Well, I hope you had your money's worth.
Johnny, you've got to help me.
Help you? I am looking at you. He needs that money.
Why me? I haven't got any.
You've got the watch he gave you.
I haven't got it. It broke. It's being repaired.
Get it back.
You must get it.
Why?
Because he borrowed £300 from Malibis.
I stole it. I stole it out of the wages money, and I faked the books.
And he spent it on you.
I didn't ask him to steal from me.
Not above a whisper.
I'm not blaming you, Calico. It was my own fault.
He's got 8 days to put it back.
Well,
You can give him back his watch for a start.
At the end of 1958, Terence was buying and selling property again, returning to Brighton and purchasing a large Regency house at number 6 Brunswick Square in Hove. The property also included a mews building at the rear. The whole lot was purchased for a total of £8,500, with the intention of converting the buildings into flats while they lived in a rented seafront flat around the corner from number 6 Brunswick Square. Soon, Terence was offered the lead role in the series of Sir Francis Drake. This would bring him even wider fame on television during the 1960s. The production was especially notable for its cast, with Jean Kent as Elizabeth I and a young Michael Crawford as well as Roger Delgado. It was an enjoyable time for Terence, followed up with The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb in 1964 and various television plays. However, the work began to dry up, but Terence was constantly busy with his property adventures, and in the 60s he was also enjoying performing at poetry readings in Brighton with people such as Susanna York and Dame Flora Robson. Terence Morgan's final feature film was The Life Taker in 1975, and in 1986 he had a guest appearance in the TV series King and Castle. While his acting days were now clearly behind him, he continued on with his property adventures, buying and running the Wardley Hotel in Hove. They lived behind the hotel in a large house that Terence had purchased, and ran the Wardley for 16 years, but stayed in the house for almost 30 years even after they'd sold the hotel. Terence Morgan became involved in the local community in Brighton and Hove. He was elected president of the Brighton and Hove Hotels, Restaurants and Boarding Houses Association, and he was a director of the Brighton Festival, as well as chairman of the Brighton Film Theatre, raising funds with a midnight filming of the silent film Birth of a Nation, inviting many stars to attend. The response was wonderful, with people such as Richard Attenborough and Sheila Sim, Michael Caine and Roger Moore, and many others from film, stage and television attending. Terence was also the founder member of the project to restore the Dome in Brighton. In 1999, while on holiday in France, Terence woke up at 7 a.m. one morning telling Georgina he didn't feel well and that he had a pain in his chest. Georgina rang the number for the local doctor, who was there within 5 minutes. An ambulance was called and Terence was transferred to the Antibes Cardiac Hospital. He'd had a massive heart attack and he was not expected to live. After 2 weeks of wonderful care and treatment at the hospital, Terence was well enough to take a flight. A Bupa nurse was sent to be with Terence on the flight back to England, and on arrival he was taken straight to the Royal Sussex Hospital, where Terence continued his recovery. A further 2 weeks later and he was home again with Georgina, and was so pleased to be alive that he booked a 3-week cruise to the Canaries for the whole family, including Livia, her husband and her son. Sadly, Terence never made a full recovery, and his health deteriorated over the next 5 years. Terence Ivor Grant Morgan died from heart failure in Brighton on August the 25th, 2005, aged 83. In 2007, the 683 bus in Brighton proudly carried the name Terence Morgan. I think it's still running, but I'm not sure. If you can confirm either way, please leave a comment below. In the epilogue of her book, Laughter in the Air, Georgina wrote, "Terry may no longer be with me, but the memories linger like reflections in a mirror. Looking back on the jigsaw of my life, it is only now, in remembering as I write, that I feel I can put the final piece in place. Come back, my love, and be with me again. Cast off thy shrouds so death will not have won. Come back, my love, and hold me in your arms, so our 2 hearts can beat once more as one. Come back, my love, and place your lips on mine. Relight the flame that always dwelt within. Come back, my love, come back to me. Or shall I come to thee?" Georgina Morgan passed away on the 20th of August 2021. She was 2 weeks away from her 95th birthday. In loving memory of a wonderful husband, father and grandfather, Terence Morgan, the 8th of the 12th, 1921 to the 25th of the 8th, 2005. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. And Georgina Morgan, the 3rd of the 9th, 1926 to the 20th of the 8th, 2021. Treasured wife, mother and grandmother, side by side again, my love. Thank you so much for joining me here today to remember the life of the wonderful actor Terence Morgan. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll join me in the next one.